What's the one, if you can only get one question off, Senator, what would it be?
Oh, well, I haven't narrowed it down that much yet, Andrew. I am very curious about what the ultimate business motive is for Facebook here. It sounds like they're suggesting that it's not about getting what I assume would be ultimately very valuable data through Libra. So if that's not the real motivator, what is? That's a big question for me. One of them.
Your feeling, your gut reaction right now, there's a sort of question mark in the marketplace about whether Libra will be allowed ultimately to go forward. What's your feeling?
So I got a gut feeling it probably will. I think there are legitimate concerns that can be addressed. I think, for instance, the digital wallet vehicles that are the entry point for consumers and anybody using a currency like Libra, I assume that all of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley regulations that apply to any other financial institution would apply there as well. And that's really a very extensive, proven system of protecting privacy and data. You know, the AML issues, I think, would apply there as well. I think Facebook gets that. So
you effectively think, though, that this Libra organization, though, becomes a bank, becomes a chartered bank?
I don't know that it becomes a chartered bank. I mean, that's a fair question, right? I mean, they, unlike other digital currencies, this is backed by a basket of currencies. So there's this intermediation role. It's very different from traditional deposit taking and lending. But, you know, that's a fair question. I don't know the answer to that yet.
Where do you stand on Bitcoin and how it differs from this?
So what strikes me is one of the obvious huge differences, right? Bitcoin is fascinating to me, but I don't think it's yet become a practical medium of exchange, probably mostly because it's been incredibly volatile. Something as volatile as that, and that really detracts from its ability to be a meaningful, usable currency. Well, Libra is meant to solve that problem by having it tied explicitly to a basket of currencies. So if you have the security and the ease and low cost of transactions of a digital currency, which I think they intend to, when you combine it with the stability of a, shall we say, an established, mature fiat currency, then maybe you do actually have a currency that can be adopted broadly. I think that's the intriguing difference.
Sounds like a debit card.
Do you consider cryptocurrencies a threat to the global banking system? I mean, one of the things that's been fascinating over all these years is fiat currency. Countries have had a monopoly over currency, right? And this,
right.
And efforts like this potentially could upend that.
Yeah, and I think that's something we really need to think through. I will say it's a huge advantage to the United States that we are the dominant world's reserve currency. That's a big advantage to us in many ways. I think we're a long, long way from a digital currency being a threat to that, but who knows? Adoption rates could be quite quick if there's a real major breakthrough. As I say, I think so far on the digital currencies, the volatility's precluded that kind of, you know, ubiquitous use. You know, Libra seems to be meant to solve that problem.
Senator, you sound pretty calm, cool, and collected about all of this. It sounds like you haven't entirely decided what you think. We have had people on both sides. Usually I expect somebody to be a huge proponent or a huge opponent when it comes to these things. You've heard such tough talk coming from the administration. What do you think actually plays out?
Right. So I don't know. One thing I will say is financial innovation can be a very good thing. I mean, if you ask me, I think it's still extremely expensive to execute ordinary payment transactions. I mean, just a credit card company, I mean, the fees on the credit card, aside from, I'm not talking about the high interest loans, I mean just the execution.
Right.
Over 1% could be over 2%. That's a lot of money to move money. And so it seems to me that maybe there could be some innovation in this space that would provide security and that would dramatically lower the cost of transactions. Those would be good things. Right. So I don't want to presume in advance that we've got to prevent the development of some new innovation.
The volatility of Bitcoin is because it actually has inherent value. This Libra has no inherent value other than the dollars or the basket of currency that it's based on. So, of course, it's going to be volatile because it's a fledgling It's a fledgling. And have you noticed that Bitcoin's actually already out there and being used and viable, and no regulators have had a chance to say, no, you're not going to do this. So, I mean, it's totally different. And the volatility, as it becomes more accepted, will probably go down to the point, but at least it has inherent value. Libra has no inherent value.
So, I think of it differently, Joe. I mean, Bitcoin has inherent value of scarcity, but it doesn't have any other inherent value that I'm aware of. Whereas the Libra actually is backed by a commodity of currency.
No, but the inherent value
it's only the value.
The distributed ledger system is the inherent value, and there's zero transaction costs around the world to use it. So what is that worth? It usually costs 3 or 4%. So it has its own value. I mean,
so there is.
People are arguing whether
Libra
it's
can
2,000
replicate
or
that.
20. They're arguing whether it's 2,000 or 20,000, but at least it has some inherent value.
There's cost to create it.
But my point is that can be replicated.
Right.
That can be replicated, and if that is the sole source of that, and scarcity are the sole sources of value, I could envision that it might remain quite volatile, and maybe not. You know, maybe you're right. I don't know how this all plays out, but I think it's an exciting innovation, and we ought not to try to strangle it in the crib.
How concerned are you, though, that Facebook is the backer? Is that why we're having this conversation?
Oh, I think that's a backdrop, certainly, that is influencing this. I think the big challenge for Facebook, I think on an objective matter, they're probably going to be able to comply with a regulatory regime. The question is the public going to be willing to use this and take up adoption on a big scale?
The other big question I have, given that you, like I, would love to reduce the friction and cost of transactions. You talked about credit cards, for example. You basically have 100 companies all getting together, including, by the way, MasterCard and Visa and PayPal that are part of this. Yeah. And what does that say? I know there's a big conversation about breaking up big tech, but when you have 100 massive companies all getting together around one idea, is that a good thing or a bad thing for society?
Yeah, honestly, Andrew, it's a very good question, but I don't think we know the answer to that yet. I think it's too soon to know.
And the flip side is, how much do you think today's conversation is going to really be about privacy and some of the digital issues that have confronted Facebook?
So I think most of it will, right? I think that's the big concern. I think among legislators, that's where there's a feeling that we've got to protect our constituents from misuse or other, other problems with their data, and obviously have been problems here. But let's remember, of course, the problems occur all across our society. Like every big institution is a target of attempted breaches. There have been successful breaches, unfortunately, in industry, in government, in academia. So it's an ongoing challenge.